Welcome to season 2 of the Play Their Way podcast, where we talk about all things in child first coaching. I'm your host, Laura Jane Jones, and today's guests are Siham and Sagal Abdullahi, the incredible sisters from Barakah London, a football club for Muslim girls and women in London. Have I explained that well enough, girls? Because I feel like it's a really broad title for what you two have set up as two individual girls. So tell us a little bit about the organisation.
I'll do so. First of all, thank you for having us. We're really excited. So you did a good job. I'll fill in the gaps. Essentially, Barakah London is a grassroots female football collective. We unofficially started in 2019 from our own personal experiences of playing sports. Like, we both played sports growing up. Like, when we were really young, we used to live in like an estate, like a big estate, and there used to be like a pitch right in the middle, but my mum never used to let us go and play because it was kind of unsafe. So we had just by chance, we had a really small like outdoor garden type thing. So every day, non-stop after school, like playing football. It was our personalities, it was our lives. We literally slept, woke up, breathed football constantly. And growing up in school and stuff, we played for like local teams and like school teams and that kind of stuff. And it got to a point where, in my personal experience, when I was in sixth form, it became more and more hard to play sports, mainly just because there wasn't a girls' football team. There was a boys' football team in sixth form, but there was never a girls' football team. And I was like, my form tutor was the PE teacher, and I was like, sir, like, why don't we have a girls' team? Why don't we have a girls' team? And eventually, I just stopped playing football, and football went from something that was my whole personality to something that I was like, yeah, it's like reminiscent, like, oh, it used to be fun when I used to play. And when I was in university, and it was the same experience, just not feeling completely comfortable. And so we spoke about it together, and we unofficially started sessions, like just a kickabout in 2019. We were both working, I think it was in summer, so we were both working jobs and stuff. We were just paying it out of our own money just to start the sessions and to see if there was interest. And like we really, really quickly realized that there was such a massive interest for football amongst Muslim and BAME women and girls. And so then we put our heads together. We're like, okay, cool, how do we make this more sustainable? How do we actually create something that can like sustain itself, and we don't have to use money from our own jobs to pay for it? And then we officially started in December of 2021.
2021, yeah.
Yeah, December 2021. And yeah, it's been non-stop since. And it's really beautiful to see the growth of the space, and also in a really good way, because of the growth of women's football in general, because of like the Euros win, etc. It's meant that a lot more people are thinking and wanting to join football spaces, and that, you know, thankfully our space really caters to that, because it's obviously, number one, it's run by Muslim women. We really cater to them, like it's completely women only. It's also free, because in both of our experiences, it's so like, if you're counting, for example, transport to, let's say, for example, I'm going to East London, like £4 or £5 on the TFL, on the trains, plus another £4 or £5 per session, it gets really expensive to actually play football. And so one of the things that we really wanted in the space was for it to be free. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
So I think you summed it up perfectly. Yeah, you summed it up perfectly. I think my experiences, of course, were sisters, so we have very similar experiences. I started playing football since I remember. I remember such a key memory is playing outdoors with all my siblings. At the time, we had uneven numbers, so it was me and my older sister. We were in goal, and what I used to do is I used to stand on her legs and put my arms in her shirt, so we were both in goal at the same time. So that was like such a key memory. And ever since then, just loved football. Been playing since I was young. Played it in secondary school for my school team. And ever since then, it's just, I always felt different. I was the only Muslim girl on my team, until later on there was another Muslim that joined. And I was just constantly made to feel very different, be it the uniform, not being able to wear shorts, having to wear like long sleeves. It's just little things that add up, and then it just makes you feel so different, and it made me shy away on the pitch. And ever since that, I was like, we want to create a space where we're fully comfortable. And then I think that's when Barakah came into it.
Yeah. Those barriers to participation that you talk about for young Muslim girls, there's obvious ones like kit. That's what people would assume.
Exactly. Yeah.
But how much are things like culture an issue? Would your mum and dad not be perhaps all for you playing for certain teams? Is that why it's been really important to create an environment that's specifically for girls like you?
Yeah, because I think I felt it a lot. I'm not too sure about you, but my mum was very anti me playing football. So what I used to do, sorry mum if you're listening, I used to tell her I'm going to library and I used to go football instead. I don't think she knows, or she'll find out now. But I think for her, I think my mum's unique to other ethnic parents, where my mum was more for my safety rather than me actually playing football, because I think she just got used to us playing. So it was every played since we were young. Yeah, she didn't have a choice. I think it was more where I was playing. It was like North London. I'm from West London, so it was a thing of the distance was very far, and I was coming back late at night. So she was very much anti-football because of the distance and the safety. But then after a while, yeah, she just got used to it and let me play.
I think also what impacts it as well is like your parents knowing that there's other girls that are like you in the team as well. I don't know in that specific example, but like in my experience when I was in school and stuff, especially because if you're thinking about like ethnic parents, like mum's like, she's like an asylum seeker refugee. She came to the country. So her main focus was on kind of like survival, essentially of like, I want to make sure you guys have a good education. I want to make sure you guys are in a good position in society and stuff. Yeah. And so stuff like football was kind of like, yeah, it's cool to do, but don't let it be your main thing. Like I want you to focus on school. And so when Siham was going to like, you know, club playing and all these teams and stuff, mum's thought was like, I want her to be focused on her education. Like it's good that you're having fun and enjoying yourself, but your education is your priority. And so even for me, for example, like I remember when I was in primary school getting asked to play for the boys team, and mum was like, nope, focus on your books, like focus on school and stuff. But obviously like it's now when we're talking to mum now, I think she really realizes like that was really important for you guys to be in spaces where you can, you know, play with other people, be social, find new friends and stuff. But I think it's that initial fear because something's so different. And because there's no other people doing the same thing, I'm sure if there was other Muslim mothers who were like, they would have, you know, gone to games together, it would have been a nice environment. But because it was almost like, especially because we grew up in a really white middle class area, and we were not middle class and not white, it was almost a thing of like, there's so many extra layers to it as well that mum was just trying to protect us from. But I mean, ultimately, it created an environment which meant that we really loved the sport, and later on then created a space to allow for people that like, we always say like, we want Barakah to be a space for the mini versions of ourselves to come to and to play and to, you know, be safe in that environment.
And we see that in so many people that come to the space. Like they'll tell us about situations and stories, and in my head I'm thinking that was literally me a couple years ago. So it's so refreshing to see younger girls coming to the space and us giving them a space to play football and feel comfortable. Yeah, it's like us giving back to our younger selves, basically, which is nice. Yeah.
There's one girl, for example, who when she was first coming to the sessions, she was really, number one, she was really quiet at the start, and also just from conversations, I knew her mum didn't really like her playing football. But for us, it was almost like a challenge of like, okay, cool, we can, in our own personal lives, or we know friends who had the same exact story. So we're like, okay, cool, it's our challenge. Like I think I was saying to Sam, like, once she becomes comfortable and once her mum and her family are happy with her coming to the football sessions, that's how we know we've succeeded. And so we made an effort to like get to know the parents, get to know the family, etc. And it got to a point now where not only does she come to sessions, all of her sisters come to our sessions. Her mum knows about it. Her mum was very happy with us. We took the girls to a trip to play a match against a team in Birmingham. She came along. Her sisters came along. We're really thankful that we just making that effort to get to know the family, kind of answer questions. I think a lot of times with ethnic parents, it's about like those questions about safety. Will my daughter be safe? Will she, be in an environment that supports her? Not just like can keep her safe physically, but also mentally and emotionally. But yeah, that's a long-winded answer.
No, it's absolutely amazing, girls. And there's loads of things I want to pick up on, but one of the things that Play Their Way is about a child-first approach. And when we've talked about that in different scenarios on this podcast, that might be about asking kids what they're enjoying in sessions and stuff like that. So how important is it from your perspectives when you've got young girls who are being coached in football that it's about safety and culture and that's where you come to their level and make sure that that's where they're happy? Is that something that you're always drawing feedback on?
100%. Like also because like obviously we're young as well. Like I think it's a unique perspective as well because the people that are coming to our sessions, we, number one, see ourselves reflected in them. We're also young ourselves, and it's a lot easier for us to form friendships and like almost treat the young people like sisters. And so everything, even the way our sessions are structured are informed by the young girls that come to our session. So for example, like, what do you guys want to do today? Like it's very much, especially when we started, we were like, okay, cool, let's keep like a nice structure, like we had our drills and everything set up, but we realized that just through conversations that this drill they don't really enjoy this drill, or this drill doesn't work, or they prefer this. And so our whole, where we are now is very much informed by their opinions and their feedback from the start.
What we're doing is for them, so we can't make a whole session that we think is best when it doesn't really work with them. So I think we have constant dialogue with them, and it's a constant conversation about what do you guys want to do? What do you guys prefer in a session? Do you prefer straight going into games, or do you prefer working on certain aspects? And a lot of them just want to go into matches.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
So what we've kind of like, at least the middle ground I found is like, okay, cool. In those game scenarios, I'll maybe stop them. Like, okay, cool. You should have done this in this moment, or try to practice this. Da, da, da. So it's a way of also introducing that element of drills, or a bit of like the kind of like that practice of the game, whilst they're still just playing matches, which they just want to play games. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. And they're leading it.
Yes, yes.
The three pillars of Play Their Way are voice, choice, and journey. How important is it that you're providing a space for young Muslim and BAME girls to have a voice in society where sometimes that might get lost?
I think, honestly, that's a great question.
Yeah,
Skills.
But also, I think that's literally central to everything we do. Like, we talked about our own personal experience, and the biggest thing in my personal experience was the feeling of being not literally silenced, but just not feeling like I have a voice. And obviously, in football, one of the biggest things is confidence. If you're not confident in how yourself and your abilities, you won't perform on the pitch. And so it's really important for us to, number one, create an environment where the young people can confide. I can't even speak English today. The young people can confide in us, and they can really feel they can trust us as individuals, and also as people who are leading the session. And I don't know. In general, in our experience, it's been a case where, it's just I don't know. I really think it's
I think the space we create is such a safe space that young people that come down to the sessions feel like they can speak up, they can speak to us, they can open up to us.
In terms of the participation of that young girl, do you think if she'd been in an organisation that wasn't Barakah, do you think if she was being coached by middle-class white women or white men, that her mother would have had the confidence to come and say to the coaches, I want her to be involved, but we can't afford other trainers? How much do you feel proud that you're providing a safe space, not just for her, but for her family?
Honestly, it was a very proud moment. Being able to provide someone with something that allows them to play football, the sport that we love. I think with her mum, I think just the relatability of it. We're both working class, so we understand the struggle. We were once at that stage where we weren't able to afford, or our parents weren't able to afford football shoes for us. So we get it. I think if it was now a middle class person, or someone not an ethnic person, they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't relate to that struggle. So it's very uncomfortable bringing an issue to someone that doesn't really understand it. So 100%, I think the fact that we're ethnic and we can relate to her made it so much easier for her to bring up that situation to us.
Also, I think, like, in general, like, even outside of sports, conversations around money are always very kind of like uncomfortable. Like, very much throwback. I used to work for an anti-poverty charity, and one of the things they said is that a lot of benefits go unclaimed. This is such a sidetrack, sorry, but it's fine. A lot of benefits and support gets unclaimed because people are too ashamed to say that they need help. And so, in that situation with the mother, I think her knowing that we have such a similar experience to herself, and her daughter come from a similar background, allowed for her to open up about these things, whereas in a different situation she might have been a bit more ashamed or nervous or just like uncomfortable to bring it up.
And also in that situation, when she did tell us, it kind of made us realise, maybe other people are in the same boat. So we opened up to everyone. And then we created like a form, and people just signed up if they needed extra boots, and we were able then to provide more football shoes for other people. So by her mentioning it, it was it allowed us to provide for more people.
It's incredible that you two have taken on that responsibility, but it shouldn't just be your responsibility. So for football organisations or any sports organisations that have not just children from ethnic backgrounds, but any children who come from more impoverished areas, how important is it for coaches to build a level of trust with young people so that they know that they've got their empathy and that they know they can go to them and say, I still want to be involved, but this is a barrier to my participation?
I honestly think like the biggest thing is like relatability. Like I would say to people, for example, who like you were saying, organizations or etc., I would say to hire people who reflect the background of the people that you work with, because like obviously humans are humans connect to humans, right? But ultimately it's easier for you to relate and connect to someone if they share a similar background to you, whether that's class, race, or religion, etc. So I would say make a conscious effort to diversify your teams, your coaches,
100%.
because then they can be the people in between that can speak to the families and to the young people themselves, and it will be such an easier conversation.
Yeah, I think a lot of these times you see people that don't really relate to the group running these sessions. It's a weird analogy, but it's like imagine I was told to run a session for blind footballers. I wouldn't be able to relate to them. I wouldn't be able to fully know what their needs are. So by diversifying their team, they'll be able to realise what then the people that come down to the sessions, what their needs actually are, rather than guessing and just assuming. So yeah, 100%.
Because you don't all, for example, in the example of disability football, for example, you don't have to be disabled to run a disabled football session, but it's about having that knowledge and speaking to people who are disabled, to our coaches, etc., and like getting training. It's just about you being aware, because I think in my experience, the thing I find really frustrating sometimes is having to explain my experience too much to someone. Like sometimes it feels more comfortable for me just to if the other person just gets it without me having to say it. And it's that feeling of having to explain that means for young Muslim girls or BAME girls to feel uncomfortable in mainstream football spaces, because it's again, here's another difference. Here's another way I'm different from everyone else. Like the coach doesn't just get me straight away. I have to do all that work of explaining. Especially when you're young, you might not even have the language to explain certain things. Like, for example, growing up, like she was speaking about like clothing, right? You're growing up, you're trying to understand, for example, you understand your religion more. You want to really, for me, it was really important growing up of like, I want to understand what does modesty mean and all that kind of stuff. Then to have all the external pressures of like, okay, cool, now you have to explain it to someone. Now you have to almost defend yourself and like, but I want to be part of this team. But like it's almost, you have to do so much advocacy. But you're a young person yourself. It's so difficult to do that.
How important is it then? Barakah exists as a safe space by definition, but for teams that aren't designed purely for Muslim and BAME girls, how important is it that when they're constructing their websites or putting out their team information at the beginning of the season, if they are in an area with a real ethnic diversity, that they put, this is our kit, but also this is our kit for Muslim girls who want to be modest when they're playing? How much would that attract those girls who are being lost because they don't feel like there is somewhere for them?
I think it would so much.
Yeah, 100%. I think you can't see what you can't. What's the word? What's the phrase?
You don't know what you don't know, essentially.
Yeah. So if I'm a new person, for example, and I'm seeing this on these pages, I'm gonna be like, okay, this club caters to me. Let me sign up. It's little things like before I go to other sessions, I go on their Instagram page to see, do they have people that look like me? It's the same thing. You want to be able to feel comfortable in this space, right? So that's why in these advertisements that people are making for their football clubs or in these websites, for example, make it diverse. Let it reflect your club so that people like me go onto the page and see it and be like, okay, I'll feel comfortable in this space.
Because, for example, I remember when I was in uni and I was trying to join the uni team, those questions weren't like clearly like, it wasn't clear. Can I, for example, play football wearing trousers? Do I need to wear shorts? Da, da, da. And so it meant for me that I had to then do extra work of like, cool, let me get in touch with the coach or let me get in touch with the captain and try to find out this kind of stuff. What's easier is to have like an FAQ section of your website. Can I play wearing trousers? Da, da, da. Can I is the dress code strict? Like having those FAQs means that the person doesn't have to do all that effort of finding out, which can also be like anxiety inducing sometimes of like, cool, I have to go and reach out to someone. It's a lot of work. Like imagine you're just trying to play football. You don't want to do all this extra work.
And to be honest, I was going to ask you, what were the barriers to you playing football at university? Because in my head, it was going to be the cultural side of university sports. Yes. But if it was as simple as something like not knowing that there was a uniform provision for you, that again shows that from, the start of the alphabet, from A, they weren't doing their job 100%. To do it.
100%. Obviously, like with uni, like the drinking culture is quite intense. So all sports, so it does feel uncomfortable. But I went to Queen Mary, so Queen Mary is already a bit more diverse than most universities. Also because it's based in East London, like it's based in Mile End, so the area itself is more diverse, etc. So the team, I believe the team was more diverse anyway, but it's just like, the first hurdle of like, okay, cool, do I have to wear shorts? It just made extra barriers and stuff. But I think the drinking culture is another issue that Muslim, BAME, or people who just don't drink will find uncomfortable in kind of the traditional uni sports spaces. But I didn't even get far enough. I gave up. I was like, cool, it's not for me.
Culture is a really interesting one, because I found it really interesting earlier in the podcast when you said that it's not that it could never exist, it just doesn't exist yet. So groups of Muslim mums coming to watch football, it's not that they don't want to do it, they just haven't had their place. How much do you feel like Barakah's moving the needle with that you're starting to create a different look to women's football, a different look for Muslim sports participation in the UK?
That sentence, no, first of all, itself was an exciting sentence just to hear it out loud. I definitely think we are. Obviously there's other Muslim clubs that exist, but I think just the way we're going about it, number one, like really centering the person's experience. Like I don't want to compare to other clubs and stuff, but I think for us, what's really important is accessibility, making sure that they are like, as whatever barriers exist, we want to reduce them as much as we can, as much as is possible for us. And also the image of a group of Muslim mums watching a game, I think that will happen in the near future. And I think how
much power will that have?
Incredible power, because number one, it will empower the young person or child to feel like, wow, my mom, like she wants to watch me play. She's here to like all children want their parents to kind of encourage them, to watch them, to celebrate them. And I think obviously there's other barriers which can, like I'm talking about outside of football, like finances, etc. Which means that maybe ethnic parents or Muslim parents might be busy working, etc., which is an issue also working class parents might face as well, or even parents in general will face. But I think that I think it will completely change things, and I think we are part of the conversation of moving the needle forward in terms of Muslim women in sports. Because I think I wanted to mention it before, but you spoke earlier about like the kind of cultural barriers. When people think about Muslims playing sports, they think straight away kind of cultural, religious barriers, all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of times, because obviously South Asian Muslim are the biggest Muslim majority like population in this country, a lot of times almost Muslims are treated like a monolith, that we're all exactly the same, that we have the exact same experience. And so even in like statistics and stuff, the South Asian experience it becomes kind of like a blanket over everyone else's experience, where obviously in for example in their culture there's a lot more kind of cultural rigidity around certain things. They have their own experiences, of course, but sometimes it means that people will assume that I have that experience, but as a Black African Muslim, my experience is different. Growing up in school, there was a lot more Somali, also West Somali. There's a lot more African or Caribbean Muslim students playing sports in general, boys and girls. And so our experience is different from that. But I think it's obviously important to, number one, acknowledge that their experience exists, but also to make sure that people know that not every Muslim girl has the same cultural barriers that an South Asian Muslim girl would have, for example.
So let's take it back to your mum, who came over here as an asylum seeker. One of the big things of Play Their Way isn't just about centralising play, which we know that Barakah do, but it's about the UN rights of the child. How proud is your mum of you two for being two young Muslim women who are upholding children's rights in the UK like you are through participation in sport?
I don't know, she must be proud, I'm not too sure. But yeah, no, honestly, I don't think we ever properly sit back and realise the work we do. I think with us it's just so much go. I don't think we actually take time to sit back and realise the effect of our work.
But we hear it often. We get a lot of feedback and comments during our sessions. We also host a lot of community gatherings, which I think also affects. Which I also think affects how much people can connect to us in the space. Because then obviously traditional coaches, you'll run your sessions and that's it. But when we started, a lot of the girls were like, oh, but we want to have like some gatherings, we want to have like celebrations and, like picnics and da-da-da. And so we were like, okay, cool, this is something that's clearly the young girls and women really want in this space. And so once we started doing that, it also allowed for people to just get to know each other outside of the football space, because people are gathering together. For example, in Ramadan, we had like an iftar gathering. So people literally broke bread and ate and kind of were around each other. And so I think, going back to your question, I definitely think mum is proud. But also like what people might not know is that my mum, she ran her own community organisation. So we're following in her footsteps. Yeah. Like she came to the country with very little resources, but she realised that there's a lack that young people, so her organisation is specifically focused on education. And so she realised there's a lack, like young people don't have, especially from our community, don't have support when it comes to school, etc. And so we were the young people helping her set up chairs for events and stuff. And we really saw a great example in her. And that's what allowed us to start our Barakah. For example, even, not to get too technical, but the funding side of sports, I learned that from seeing my mum, how she operates and stuff. So I definitely think she's proud, and also I'm very grateful to have seen that example, because like she said, like sometimes you don't know something exists unless you've seen it before. And likewise, even when it comes to coaching, if you ask a young person like at the first session, what do you want to do? They're gonna be like, I don't know. Like, but if you show them, okay, we could do this, we could do that, and they can see how the different options are, then they're more likely to be like, okay, cool, let's do this. I prefer this over that, especially if they've never gone to a football session before. But yeah.
So you are two mind-blowingly passionate 20-something women who have done so much already. What are your dreams for this organisation? Where do you want to see it in 10 years, in 20 years? How scalable is this? In 25 years, is this going to be winning the Helen Rollason Award at Sports Personality for services to sport because it will be a UK-wide phenomenon? Tell me what you want to happen here.
Should we reveal our secrets? I think our idea is we want to give back to our home, basically. So in 10 years' time, hopefully, I see this being a Barakah London Somalia. So creating the same initiative, but in Somalia, and giving back to the young girls there. I think that's probably like a very aspirational goal, but hopefully we make it, maybe not in 10 years, maybe
20 or 30.
Maybe 20. Give us time, but yeah, that's probably the biggest goal in my head.
But I think in terms of the UK, the biggest goal is for the young people that we coach and who attend sessions for them to run this. English. Yeah, one of our biggest goals is for the young people who attend the session for them to run it themselves. Mm-hmm. Like we would love, because ultimately we don't, like Barakah is not about us as individuals. It's about the space itself. And so it would be incredible if the young girls would, eventually we support them, give them training, etc., for them to run it themselves and for it to be a continuous space that outlasts and outlives us. Like ultimately we see this as like, this is not like a 5-year, 10, this is a lifetime goal. Like I was thinking about the other day of like 5 or 6 years ago, like there was no space for Muslim girls to play football, and now that it exists and there's other spaces, and we support other girls to run. Like for example, some girls come to our sessions like, oh, I want to run it. I'm like, here you go, here's support. We supported a couple girls to get level 1 qualifications as well. Like we really are. It's important for us to not only essentially plant those seeds so that more kind of plants and flowers can grow, and other Muslim or BAME football clubs and stuff can pop up in other areas, because we didn't have that support. We had to learn it ourselves, especially being young people. Like one of the biggest barriers was us being young and people not taking us seriously because we're young. And so, yeah, we had to fight, but we want to make sure that people don't have to fight. We want to make it an easy go. Like young people it should be easier for young people to start things. And so, yeah, that's our goal, just to make it easier, for it to outlast us, for it to increase in size, for it to, be global.
Yeah. I think the main reason we started Barakah was for other Muslim girls to find a space to play football. So I think if other girls come to our sessions and takes that away and start something in their local area, it just means our initial goal is being made, basically.
The more the merrier, essentially.
Exactly.
And for those people listening who want to find out more about the organisation, where can they find that?
Instagram. We will have a website soon. But it's Barakah, BARAKAH _London. LDN, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you can find out, a lot of our stuff's on social media, on Instagram. But yeah, we have a lot of exciting things planned this year. So stay tuned.
I think the sky's the limit for you two.
100%, fingers crossed.
Siham and Sagal, thanks so much for joining us today. You have been two absolutely fantastic guests, and we've loved having you on. And thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed. Be sure to leave us a review and share this with someone else who you think might enjoy it too. Check out our website at www.playtheirway.org and follow Play Their Way on social media at Play Their Way on TikTok, X and LinkedIn, and at Play Their Way UK on Facebook and Instagram.